Hey there, Raider Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Silver and Black Sports Network podcast. Jesse Merrick here, coming to you from the field at Allegiant Stadium after a heartbreaker of a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars in overtime. Let's keep it real. The Raiders were competitive. That is a step forward in this one. Obviously, the Jags, a beaten up and battered team, so it shouldn't have looked better. But if you want to put a feather in your cap in this one, at least the Raiders came out and looked competitive, responded much better. Now, there's a whole lot to get into from this game, but first of all, we'll start with a positive. I'm generally a positive guy on here. There's plenty of negative to talk about in this game, but Brock Bowers, a total monster. He comes back into this game, goes for 3 touchdowns, 127 yards, and 12 receptions. Obviously, he changes things for this Raiders offense. If you're a fan of this team, you have to love what you saw from Brock Bowers in this game today. That obviously changes it. Now, the next step forward is going to be to push the ball down the field. We'll get into that, but Brock was unbelievable. Looked like the guy that we all thought he would be entering the season. Obviously, he is healthy, or at least healthy enough to do some crazy things, and he did that in this game here. Obviously, it wasn't enough. They end up losing. There's a lot to talk about with the way the defense played in this game as well. But first, let's start with that 2-point conversion there for the Raiders. They go for the win. The right call, obviously. You're not going to go for a tie in that situation. So the Raiders go for it. We talked to Geno after the game, and he said that they actually got the look they wanted. They checked to the right play. Tyler was wide open. That's who he was looking for. Tyler Lockett in the corner of the end zone there. It looked like he was running like a corner post or something. And Geno looked to him, kind of double clutched. And then the pass ended up ultimately being tipped. He said, hat tip to the guy. He made a play. Game over. I asked him, I followed up. I said, hey, it looked like you double clutched on that one. Did you think the defender was going to carry back? What was the reason for the double clutch? And he just looked at me and said, that's football, brother. And look, I get it. It happens. That's a question you don't want to answer as a player. I would like to see a little bit more accountability from him in that regard. I think Geno's a good dude. I think he's been a great quarterback many years in this league. Obviously, he is struggling this year with the Raiders. I would have liked to see a little bit more accountability there. And I genuinely wanted an answer from there. I'm not a gotcha guy. I wasn't trying to do that with him by any means. So I'm real curious to see if maybe we can get an answer from him on that when he has a chance to look at the film, or we just kind of flush it and move on. I don't know. But having said that, there were a lot of guys open on that play. Tyler Lockett was the right guy to look for, so I don't think you can knock Geno for where he was trying to go. Again, the speed, the hesitation, that should not have been there, So that's something I think Geno needs to take accountability for. I think he will. Maybe just didn't want to get into it after the game. But with that, guys, I do think the offense played well enough to win this game. I think overall this one is on the defense, but it boils down to a couple things offensively that could have totally changed the game for the Raiders. Obviously, that missed PAT on their first touchdown. Q Myers sitting right next to me in the press box. He looks at me, and as soon as they missed that one, he says, that's going to come back to bite them. That was pretty early in the game, or at least not too far into the game. And sure enough, it did. They end up making the kick to go to OT. If they make that, extra point there's an argument to be made, this thing's probably not going to OT. I don't know. Maybe the Jags drive down and win the game in regulation. Who knows? But it makes life a lot tougher on them. Also, again, not to dog on Geno because I thought he played a solid game overall, but he goes and throws that interception 52 seconds into the third quarter when he was looking for Michael Mayer. Now, that one's not all on him. I asked Michael Mayer after the game because watching it live, it looked like part of that was on Mike. Even watching the game, too, you see Geno, he's kind of pushing back like this as he's walking off the field, basically saying he wanted Michael Mayer to come back, and that's very common. I can't remember if Michael ran a hitch or an out, whatever the route was. You got to fight your way back to the ball. I asked Michael about that after the game, and he owned up to it and said he's got to fight his way back. He's got to work his way back, at the very least, to be able to make a play on that one so the defender can't get in there and pick that one off. But obviously, you're coming back to the ball, you have a much better chance to catch it. I liked the ownership that Michael took on that one. And obviously, look, for Geno, maybe don't throw that one that late in that position right there, but that one is one of those ones where Mike's got to help his quarterback out as well. But that was a brutal one. I know the Jags only go down and kick a field goal. The defense held there, but you have to be able to move the chains and just not turn the ball over, play clean football. You take those two plays away, the missed PAT and that one there where the Jags go down and kick the field goal, the Raiders probably win this game, But overall, offensively, like I said, I thought they fared pretty well. It was a little interesting the way that they were kind of handling the running game and all that stuff. Early on in the game, the first 2 carries, I believe they go for 17 yards, and they do 3 straight passes and punt. That was a bit of a head-scratcher. Just overall on the day, the way they handled things with Ashton, Jeanty in the running attack didn't make a lot of sense to me or anybody else in the press box, really. Jeanty finishes with 13 carries for 42 yards. He should have had more. There's no denying that. But they did get him involved a lot in the passing game. He had 5 catches for 47 yards and a touchdown as well. So obviously he made his impact felt. but there's still some sort of disconnect. I don't know why Chip isn't just running the ball at a consistent pace with them. You know, there was one point there I do want to get to a certain point in my notes here when they were down on the goal line. They're a yard out and they can't score there. Just got to find this real quick here, guys, because I really did want to get into that. That one was disconcerting. Look, you got the best offensive coordinator, highest paid offensive coordinator in the league, that is, excuse me, and you can't score from a yard out. It was 1st and goal there for them. And, they run that jumbo package. I can't find it in my notes here, guys, but you go and run that jumbo package down there where they bring Cap in. He declares as eligible there. And the first play, they run it. I think it was like a loss of 1 yard. Okay, whatever. Well, you keep pounding the rock the way Jeanty's been doing it. And they tried to do that. On the very next play, they go back to that jumbo package. But they tried to get cute. They tried to hide Jeanty as the fullback, had Brock Bowers as the running back, motion him out. Kappa has the false start. The rest is history. They don't end up scoring the touchdown there. And then, that's kind of another one where, like, look, you have to be able to punch it in there. If you have the best offensive coordinator in the league, you got to find a way to orchestrate the running game to get in there or figure out a way to get in the end zone there. I didn't like the way that one was handled. Also, too, just from a play calling standpoint as well, the final drive of the first half, there was about 4.5 to go for the Raiders there. They were operating like it was a 2-minute drill, and they had their timeouts, or most of them at least. I don't remember if they had all 3 or not, but I just didn't like the way they were handling that. They went away from the run completely. They run it right after the 2-minute warning. Get Jeanty going, move the chains there, mix it up a bit more. They just passed, early on there, and we're running a 2-minute drill when there was 4.5 minutes to go. Didn't like that one bit from Chip Kelly in this offense. Again, just kind of a head scratcher for the way he's calling some of the games and some of these situations. Just not what I expected with Chip Kelly. And again, I know we've come to see this throughout the year. I guess this is just kind of what the offense is going to be. You're going to be kind of scratching your head as the game goes on, wondering why they're going away from the running game when you have the 6th overall pick. But they were dinking and dunking, trying to play, and attack the edges a lot as well, which are some risky throws. I don't really dig that too much. But trying to attack the edges, spread guys out, then run the ball with Jeanty. Again, just would have liked to see it at a much higher clip. But they did get Brock involved. Again, he goes for 12 catches. They got him involved. He made his presence felt. That's what you need to do. It needs to be Jeanty, Jacoby, and also Ashton, Jeanty as well for the Raiders offense. It's that 3-headed attack that needs to get cooking. We obviously saw Jacoby get involved a bit in the game too, but not as much as maybe I would have liked to see. But definitely, you got to just, if I'm Chip Kelly, I'm just letting Ashton and Brock take over the game week in and week out. Feed them as much as you have to in order to let that happen. And I don't think they did that enough. And it's indicative of the time of possession as well. They lose the time of possession in a big way in this game. The Jags had it for 42 minutes and 57 seconds. A lot of that is on the defense. We'll get to that. And then the Raiders only had it for 26 minutes and 47 seconds in this game. So once again, they lose time of possession. Got to figure out a way to sustain these drives. Keep your defense off the field as well. Help them out a bit. And the offense just didn't do that quite enough. One of the other things that stands out to me, and I said it going in, we saw it in the game against the Titans. And look, the way Geno's playing overall, they probably don't trust him to throw the ball down the field. But even Michael Mayer after noted the fact that they got to figure out a way to get that deep passing game going. They haven't been able to push the ball down the field. In this game, their average depth of target was 4.1 yards. Not great. You got to figure out a way to get going. Now that Brock is back in the future, the coming games here, you got the short week against Denver, whatever going forward, you got to figure out a way to hit on, a few of those deep shots at some point here. Otherwise, teams are just going to sit back, keep everything in front of them, and then the Raiders offense is going to look like it's looked the last handful of weeks. They'll be able to stop the run mostly, or Chip will move away from it. They're going to dink and dunk, and then, maybe the Raiders will score every now and then. But I just need to see more out of them. Having said that, the way the Raiders did score and take advantage of their drives late in the game, I believe they scored on their last 3 drives of the game, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. In OT, they drive down, score the touchdown, get down there with a shot to win it. That is a major plus for them to be able to do that against any team. Forget who the Jags didn't have. It's an NFL team out there. That is a positive going forward coming out of the bye week, that they were able to string drives together and score and take advantage of most of their opportunities in the red zone. But I noted some of the issues that I saw that I didn't like, the way things were handled going forward. Also, to the offensive line, I think we need to see a bit more out of them. They allowed 28 pressures on the day, 5 unblocked pressures, at least according to PFF, and only 2 sacks. But I think Geno played well in the pocket and managed that pressure fairly well for the most part, aside from a couple plays here and there. But, I like the way that he played the game as a whole. Yeah, at times he's staring down Brock and stuff, but, let's not get too overcritical of him. Obviously, again, the interception there, I get it. Fans are going to lose their minds for that, but that one really is on Mike. You're trusting your guy to come back and fight through that one, especially a big body guy like Mike. But, again, overall, I think Geno played himself a fairly solid game aside from the interception, and then again also double clutching on the 2-point conversion. But it boils down to a lot more than just that. And we'll get to the defense in a second. I just want to go to Geno's stats here real quick. He goes 29 of 39, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. This game is not on Geno Smith, regardless of the fact that he throws that interception 52 seconds into the second half there. Like, you cannot put this game on Geno Smith. You really do have to put this game on the Raiders defense. I was really disappointed with what I saw from them. I mean, look, this is as healthy as this Raiders team as a whole has been all year, and the Jags offense was missing a lot of guys. Coming into this game, no Travis Hunter, no Tim Patrick. That's 2 of their top 3 receivers out of the game. And then I don't remember exactly when it was, but I believe it was the third quarter that Brian Thomas Jr. also goes out of the game. So you're going up against, for the most part, a bunch of nobodies, and you can't get this Jags team off of the field. That's insane. Looking at third downs, they go 9 for 16 on the day. That's like 50% or 56%, if my math is right. I went back and looked at it. Patrick Graham talked about it, before entering the week, about wanting to do a better job on first and second downs in order to help his guys out in terms of those third down situations and just make them a much shorter situation on third down. That wasn't the case again today. 7 times the Raiders faced 3rd and 3 or less. That cannot happen against any team, especially against a team led by Trevor Lawrence, who I thought he played one hell of a game today and was able to keep his team out there and move the chains. Again, they had the ball for almost 43 minutes in this game. So pretty insane. But the Raiders have to figure out a way to get better on first and second downs. One thing that also stood out to me as well, the way that they defended the run. They've been really good against the run for the most part, aside from a couple crooked numbers. Obviously, the game against the Commanders, there's the really big 61-yarder, if I remember right. But for the most part this year, I think we can all agree the Raiders have been fairly good at stopping the run. That wasn't necessarily the case in this one. I know the numbers aren't like crazy off the charts, but they did allow 5 runs or 10 or more yards. You can't allow those explosive runs. That's what's going to be kind of a backbreaker for a defense, And obviously penalties were an issue too as we get to that, as I kind of get off track here a little bit. But I want to go look at the final tally on penalties. Q and I were kind of tracking them as the game was going on. The Raiders finished with 7 penalties for 55 yards. The Jags actually had more of them, 9 for 80 yards, but 7 penalties, just critical. It's like death taxes, and then the Raiders committing penalties throughout the game. It's hurt them on offense. It's hurt them on defense a ton of times as well. That one to Devin White as well. When exactly was that? Let me find this one again, guys. Yeah, with about 7:30 to go in the game, there was a Polamalu tackle for a loss. Devin White gets the unsportsmanlike penalty, turns what would have been a 2nd and 14 at the 45 to a 1st and 10 at the 30, and then the Jags go down, score, and end up going up 20-16. That's another one where another key play. And who knows, maybe that drive finishes a little differently, and maybe they don't end up going to overtime and needing that insane play by Brock, the 27-yard touchdown catch, to go up 3, late in the game. But again, then the defense comes back out on the field, with 1:52 to play, and then they go and can't stop them, can't get them off the field. But like I said, the defense needs to be better today in this game against the Jags in the run. The Jags forced 9 missed tackles on runs as well. We've seen this team struggle with missed tackles at times. Cannot do that. 9 missed tackles in the running game. Also had 7 missed tackles in the passing game as well, at least according to Pro Football Focus. So that's 16 missed tackles. That's brutal. Again, those are drive extenders. Cannot let that happen. And then we talked about the explosive runs. They had 5 runs of 10 yards or more. Well, the Jags also had 7 passes go for 15 yards or more. Also had 3 passes for 20 yards or more. Cannot let that happen. I mean, look, again, this is a team that was missing a lot of their key players, and you're still letting them make these chunk plays and stay out on the field. Like, the defense needs to be better, and that's concerning because I think that we all thought, at least early on in the year, that the Raiders were going to be playing, winning defense or winning football on defense, and it was the offense that was letting them down. Well, and today, in a game against what is honestly a bad, Jaguars defense, they can't get off the field. It was crazy. And then even more critically, too, the 4th downs in the red zone. That was something that really stood out to me as well. The Jags go for it 3 times on 4th down in the red zone. They were 3 for 3 on 4th down conversions in the red zone. That is a complete and total backbreaker. You cannot let that happen. On one of them in particular, I forget exactly what point of the game it was, but they run kind of that option. They were having Malcolm Kuntz be the pitch guy. They go, pitch it out to him, boom. They pick up the 1st down, attacking the edge there. You can't get beat on something like that, and I feel like Kuntz has been on a handful of those a lot this year. I've been disappointed with what I've seen from him. I would be shocked if he ends up coming back next year. He looks more probably like a rotational guy for somebody else in the future. He had a big opportunity coming back from injury to show what he could do after he looked like he was a guy on the rise before going down with the injury heading into that next season there. So that's been a bit of a bummer what I've seen from him overall. Look, they were chipping Max a ton. I thought Adam Butler played a hell of a game. He showed up a handful of times, and obviously there were some moments like Tyree, comes through as well at one point to force to come through as a stop on third down, and then eventually force a field goal. But overall, we just didn't see it from the rest of the guys on the defensive line when they're taking Max out of the game with the chips and different things like that, and making it harder on him. The other guys aren't coming through with the consistency that you need them to in order to win the game and make it tough on Trevor Lawrence. I said heading into the game that Trevor Lawrence, from the reports out there from Adam Schefter and those guys at ESPN, was battling some sort of illness. Well, look, you got to get to him early, make him feel worse, make him run around, make him need the IV, make him need whatever that is. Like, just make life tough on him. Also, same deal with Brian Thomas Jr. He wasn't battling, any sort of illness or anything like that, but he was battling injuries and also had issues with drops, and I just don't think they were tight enough in coverage against him as well. We did see Patrick Graham mix in some man looks here and there. I would like to see more man looks, especially with Darian Porter coming to the fold. I know he's a long, rangy guy, played a lot of cover 3, if I remember right, at Iowa State there. And so you bring him in, he is that Pete Carroll-esque corner, or the prototypical corner for Pete Carroll that you want to have him sit back there and he can play the soft zone and maybe get in there with his range. But they went after him a lot today. I'll be curious to see in the coming days what the totals look like for yards that he allowed in coverage in this one. But he is a rookie. You guys have been asking for him to take over for Kyle Blue Kelly, so I don't want to hear anybody complaining about that. Like, they finally threw the rook out there, and he's going to get tested, obviously. And we'll see how he progresses as the year goes on. That's for sure. But again, I'm just a bit disappointed from what I saw from the Raiders defense as a whole. I thought that this was going to be one of those ones where they were going to be able to come back and show the type of defense that I thought they were going to be, that most of us in the media thought they would be. So disappointing in that regard. Again, just letting them eat up so much clock. Almost 43 minutes on time of possession. You cannot let that happen. The Raiders got to be able to generate more up front from the defensive line. Heading into the season, I thought guys like Jonah and even Tyree, who had started to flash a bit here and there, would show up at a more consistent pace. We haven't quite seen that. Thomas Booker as well. I could be wrong. I haven't seen him flash recently, but Adam Butler, like I said, he's jumping in the backfield on a handful of plays. I think had at least probably 2 or 3 tackles for a loss as well in this one. They just need it from the other guys at a more consistent pace, going forward. Otherwise, they're going to have some issues when teams are able to chip Max and get him off his spot. Like, Max can only do so much. He is your difference maker, and there are plenty of times where you need him to step up, and he did here and there in this game. But he needs some help. He can't do it completely alone. That guy's out there all the time. They're rotating bodies through. Those guys should be fresh, should be able to help him out, especially, and that's going to help the guys on the back end. But the big thing, too, again, the penalties like we talked about. Got to clean that stuff up. One positive thing as well, another one from it, we talked about Brock. Obviously, he's a positive. Jeanty's a positive, and the impact that he had just needs the ball more. Raheem Mostert, we got to give this dude his flowers. He was a guy that I said I didn't think was going to make the roster. Ultimately ends up not making the roster, or I can't remember how that all ended up working out, but ends up being a healthy scratch, most of the season. And then they finally throw him in there. And this guy, anytime he touches the rock, especially in the return game, he goes off. Let me pull his stats up real quick and see what he finished with in the return game. Because, again, I was really impressed with Raheem Mostert, and I thought that he's been a really solid back. Also, too, for those of you guys interested in learning more about him, Paul Gutierrez, who now works for the Raiders, actually wrote a great feature on Raheem Mostert. Really good dude. So he had 5 kick returns for 202 yards. He averaged 40.4 yards per kick return. That's a hell of a job by Raheem Mostert on special teams. I mean, look, we've seen special teams, be a thorn in the side for the Raiders many weeks this season. He's a guy, a vet that's coming in and really taking hold of that opportunity on special teams and not throwing his nose up. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a guy a couple years ago that led the league in touchdowns, and now he's mostly relegated to some third down work and special teams play. And he's still going out there and doing his job. He's feeding his family, doing that stuff. So I've been really impressed with what I've seen out of Raheem Mostert, in terms of the limited work that he has had, especially on special teams in the return game. So keep that up, man. I mean, keep letting him get those touches in the return game. Obviously, you don't want to see him get too many, I guess, as a kick returner, because then that means that the opposing team is likely scoring a lot of touchdowns against his defense. But Mostert's one of those positives I think you got to walk away from feeling pretty good about, going forward. But now it's a short week. They go to Denver to take on a Broncos team that has been cooking. I know they're going to be without Pat Surtain, but this is a Broncos team that's played very well throughout most of the season. Looks like a really good team. I'm real curious to see how that's going to go for them. In terms of our next podcast, that's going to be dropping on Wednesday morning. You guys know Cody Alexander from Match Quarters. He's been on the podcast a handful of times. He actually is a Broncos fan, but he knows football better than just about anybody out there. So I'm going to bring him on our Wednesday show to really take a deep dive into that matchup, to break down what they're doing well on defense, what they're doing well on offense, their weaknesses, all those things, where some holes can be for the Raiders to try and get things going, how he thinks they're going to try and attack Geno and company, all of those things, and how he thinks that offense is going to try and go after this defense as well. So I can't wait to talk to Cody. That's going to be a good one. Overall, guys, I'm curious how you guys feel. For those of you that have made it this far into the podcast, let me know in the comments, if you haven't already, how you kind of wrap your head around this one. I know a lot of people are already looking forward to the draft. I mean, look, it's November 2nd. We're not going to talk about the draft just yet, but if you guys are worried about holding on to draft positioning and all that stuff, I think you should be pleased that the Raiders were competitive and then go on and lose, and so they can, keep moving forward to the draft, capital portion of things. I don't like that. I don't really want to start talking about that stuff because it's way too early. There will be a time and place for all of that, but I know many of you guys are already looking ahead to that and kind of punting on the season, but there's still a lot of football to be played. I did say this was a must-win. They lose, so now you wonder what happens in that locker room. I did see Max afterwards say, I think it was Dominic Lavoie from the RJ, asked him, about this game and just how much it sucks. And Max said, he's like, I feel for all the fans that spend all this money to come to these games week in and week out, and they just continue to let them down. So I feel for you guys as well, and Max does too, and this team does. So maybe they'll figure it out. Short week, anything can happen. It's not looking great against the Broncos. I'm curious what the spread's going to be on that game. But again, those short weeks, anything can happen. No doubt the Raiders are going to be mad. They're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. Does that pan out to anything on the field? Who knows? We'll have to kind of wait and see. But like I said, keep an eye out for that next podcast dropping on Wednesday with Cody Alexander. That is going to be a good one. This dude drops all the knowledge, so I'm really looking forward to chatting with him. So with that, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us here. As always, do make sure you check us out on silverandblacksportsnetwork.com and subscribe to our free newsletter dropping on Monday and Fridays. Obviously, the one that's coming out here on Monday is going to be breaking down this game, diving deeper into the numbers with more takeaways and also some more sound, both from Coach Pete and also from Gino in the locker room as well. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. I know it's tough as another loss mounts. And at the end of the day, the Raiders are 2-6. That's not good or good enough. This was something that we didn't expect from this team. I think moving forward, I thought that this was going to be a much better year for them, but such is life. They're going to keep moving forward. We'll see how they respond in Denver. With that, guys, thanks for listening and watching wherever you guys are. And again, make sure you hit us with those 5-star reviews if you like what you heard. And we'll catch you guys again on Wednesday. Take it easy.